Hi, welcome to the show, brought to you by Santa Marina Italian Takeaway and Deli. Dan, what do you recommend?
I recommend a Dan's pasta. It's off the menu. Go in and say, "Can I have a Dan's pasta with a plain garlic bread?" That's what I
And
recommend.
what does that consist of?
You'll have to find out when you go and get it. Because you're a big fanny, and I've told you for years to get a Dan's pasta. No, I don't like spicy food. It's not spicy.
Well, that was Dan Payne. I'm Andy Thompson. Also joining us is Big Bad Becca Thompson. That was at her request. And,
Woohoo!
and West Cumbria's finest again, Jordan Weir.
If I'm the finest thing up here, as I said about Dan last week, we're struggling. So,
Yeah,
but I'll
it's
I'll,
just
I'll
there
take
to
it.
boost your
I'll take
ego,
it.
mate.
I'll take it.
So, an IMG special, not an IMG special. We're gonna
Oh,
rectify what IMG have done wrong, aren't we?
IMG special.
After,
Christ, done that last
yeah,
week.
I know. I'm still shaking at the thought of that. It was horrible, wasn't it? Before we go into how we're going to fix rugby league, Jordan, you've been whoring yourself around West Cumbria again, haven't you, my mate? Ended up at Town's pre-season.
Yeah, did got the message last week. Are you okay to come up and speak to Dean Marwood? Yeah, if you want. So I got myself up. Got a few funny looks from obviously some of the ex-Whitehaven players and going, "Are you following me now as well?" Christ, I can't get away with you. Yeah, spotted Dane Marwood. Only sort of 4 to 5 minutes, but it was good to get his thoughts. Obviously, it was his first session. Town had obviously had a few at the time, but it was good to get his thoughts and obviously returning to the club. Obviously, a legendary player at Town, sort of around that Super League era where they made the first. In the first season of Super League, but he's been coaching in and around obviously Barrow for the last few seasons. Obviously being at Barrow Island, I think you'll love that, Andy. But yeah, no, it was good to get his thoughts on obviously returning to the club, what he sees, the expectations of League One this season, and what his early thoughts were on the first pre-season session that he'd seen. Dean, first week of pre-season, pretty much complete for yourselves here at Workington Town. What's that first week been like?
Oh, well, the lads have been training really well. They've done a lot of fitness testing with Johnny and John and Carl. So it was my first night out tonight, which was freezing on that artificial pitch, but the lads got a good session in, and John took them through the paces and did a few skills, and it was a really good session.
You mentioned it was a cold one tonight. I suppose it's what pre-season's all about. Obviously, these late November evenings, early December evenings, as it will be over the next few weeks. But you're impressed with what you've seen out there in your first session this evening?
Yeah, definitely. It's a good mix of youth and experience, and everyone's fighting for positions, and plenty of competition. And it should be a good pre-season, and I know John O's got a good programme set out for him, and we've got the friendlies coming up, and the lads will be chomping at the bit hopefully come February, March time.
And obviously, for yourself, a return to Workington Town, what excited you about coming back? Obviously, working with Jonty and obviously returning to Darwin Park.
Well, it's I've been coaching a lot of years down at Barrow as assistant, through various coaches, and I've been back at Barrow Island, and it was just an opportunity I didn't think I could turn down. I'd like to put something back where we're, to a club where we had really good times. So yeah, it was just at the right time. And when Jonty phoned, I thought, well, we can come to some agreement with me travelling backwards and forwards and on shifts. It was, I was more than glad to help.
And obviously, you mentioned coming back to the club, and obviously, where you had some good times. Obviously, you were part of that sort of really one of the golden eras at Town, really, in terms of that Super League era and playing in the first edition of the Super League. Obviously, what's it like coming back to the club and obviously seeing a lot of, I still imagine, some familiar faces.
Yeah, there's still some faces, at the club when, I was last year. But, no, it feels the same. It feels like the club's building strong. They're doing good in the boardroom and behind the scenes. And the team looks good, and it felt like that when I came. We were building and we just kept building and building each year. And we had a lot of success. And that's what you got to do. The club's got to start right from grassroots and get the best amateurs in and get good players in, and you know, all fight together and play together, and hopefully we can come up with some good results.
You mentioned obviously about you know, the club sort of building together and obviously moving forward. There seemed to be that. Obviously, I was lucky enough to be there on Friday night. I know you couldn't be there, but I was lucky enough to be there on Friday night for the big reveal. And like you said, 200 plus people in the marquee, 20 plus players pretty much announced at once. Something for the fans to look forward to. You know, just to try and get rid of them pre-season blues.
Yeah, it was a really good build-up. I don't think anyone done it like that before, so it was a, you know, a massive success for the club, and hopefully they can get some more sponsors and some people more on board, you know, to build the club up again. Like you said, the team and the club's got to keep building. They're doing great things, you know, around the ground and on match days, and you know, entertainment-wise, and you know, and now it's up to the team to get some success on the field.
And you mentioned there about success on the field. I imagine, obviously, you Jonty, yourself, and a few others as obviously part of the backroom staff, and obviously maybe higher up as well. I'll have had a conversation about what success looks like this season. What will that look like? Obviously, trying to improve on last season, but you know, where do you want to be this season?
Well, the thing is, the club wants to be as high as it possibly can. That's the plan. You know, all we can do is prepare each week. You know, try and get the lads in the right frame of mind and the right condition, and you know, the right tactically to play. And you just take it week to week, and we'll take what comes.
Right, and also on Monday, Becca, there was some trials, weren't there, for Barrow ladies?
Well, Sunday.
So, oh, got to be pedantic, can't you?
Yeah, so the Women's Super League team, they do it every year, hold trials, normally down at Craven Park, but this year obviously been a bit of rain, so moved it to the academy. So yeah, they had the trials there, a few people come along, a few people signed up. So yeah, it's good to see how the sport's growing. It's good to see that even though you think like the team they've got already is quite big and full of Cumbrians, they've still got more coming down. So yeah, it's quite good to see. And obviously a lot of last year's Super League team were down there to support it as well, which again is good to see because really it is their own time. Like I say, these girls are not getting paid for what they do, so to come down and give a few hours of the time is obviously much appreciated by everyone. So yeah, it was really good. It's just like I got invited there, and it was obviously it was a good experience to learn and kind of be there in that scenario. But yeah, it looks good. They look kind of, you know, ready for next season, and it's good to see everyone getting down.
Is there any that you can sort of potentially see breaking
Nope.
into that first team for you?
No questions, no comment. I won't be commenting any further. But I can actually say, what I will say is, next year's rules are a bit different for Super League. So you can have a 30-woman team, 30 people in the team. It's now gone down to 25 people in the team. But you can have 5 players from your under-19s signed on. But I think it's like once they've played 5 games or something, then they're classed as like a first-team player. But then you can also have a quota for 5 players who've never, ever been associated with the RFL. So if they've been union, then you can get them over and they'll be classed as like a new player. So you can actually have like 5 quota spots for them as well. So realistically, you could have a team of like 35 players. So that's one of the new rules coming into the season with the teams. Obviously, just try to get it down a bit and introduce new players into the sport as well.
You sure you don't give anything away?
I don't know anything to give away, to be fair, but no, like
You're speaking wet there. You know more than what you're letting
I was
on.
going to say that nose is growing by the minute.
No, it was a good day to get down. Like say, I mean, it's open to anyone to go, and you can sign up. Obviously it's a ladies' team, but yeah, anyone can sign up to go down and trial and kind of look and see what's going on. You know, the last few years we've had players coming from like St Helens Way and stuff to come down and see what it's about and trial and stuff. I know they had like St Helens players trialing a couple of years ago when I was there. So I wasn't trialing this year though. One of the first years I've not actually trialed myself. So I've given up on the dream.
So have you got any more trial sessions going, coming over the weeks or anything?
So I'm not really sure. Obviously, it's whatever Amanda does, and I don't even know like the ladies' pre-season stuff at the moment. But what I can say from what I know from previous years is what they did, and they published this on Facebook. They would have, if Amanda was a bit unsure about some people at trials, or obviously they used to have the reserve team that they would pull some people from. They would like invite some of them along to the pre-season, so they might do 4 sessions with them, and then some of them might be successful, some of them might not be, just to kind of see how they go in, and obviously to test their own players as well.
Right then, shall we go and fix some rugby league?
Oh yes.
So earlier late in last week, I set you all a little bit of homework to do in the WhatsApp group of how would you fix rugby league, but rather than Becca going and thinking for herself, she's relied on a Facebook comment that I jotted down. But
I've got notes. I've got notes.
I'm just saying what you said, mate. Don't you be reading out the Facebook comments?
I've also got comments from women in rugby as well.
Yeah, that's great, but you're taking other people's glory. It's other people's comments.
Oh, I've got some. Don't you worry.
I mean, we could do a show of hands of who heard Becca say that she was going to steal other people's ideas from Facebook. That's great from an audio perspective, isn't it?
Yeah. You have to go watch YouTube.
Oh yeah, so we are all got our lovely faces on there again, so you can go and see it on YouTube. Pays a visit. But go on then, Becca, get us sorted with your fix.
Right. So, and if anyone disagrees with me, then I don't really care, to be honest, because I'm always right. So, what I would change, the first thing I would change in rugby league, okay, is the 10-meter offside rule. That needs to go in room 101. Is it 101?
It is.
Right. It needs to go in room 101, right? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you don't support rugby. But I'll explain what I'm saying. So, basically, when another team scores a try, if you were offside from the defending team and you were within 10 metres of where the ball drops, the try is not given because you're offside within 10 metres of the try. However, I just don't think it's right because literally players can be at the edge of 10 metres and nowhere near the ball, nowhere near a player, literally not affecting anything, and a try won't be given because they're probably, 10.5 metres, 9 metres.
It should be like a 10-metre radius around the player receiving the ball or where the ball's landed rather than being on that line. If that makes sense.
Right. What it should be is if the offside player has interfered with any player, like even touched a player, that's fair enough, right? Or if they've interfered with the ball in any way. If there's an interference in what's actually happening, then that's offside. However, if they stand there and don't touch the ball, the thing is, right, and I say this a lot in rugby because I actually think it's true. In a play, if you're offside, right, in a defensive tackle line, you're offside and you don't touch the player, the referee's not going to give offside. Half the time. They might do sometimes in Super League, but they're not going to give offside. They're just going to say, oh, like, you've not touched the player, just get onside next time. But most players turn around. So the thing is, why, when it comes to a try, is a player who's offside then it's not a try, like penalised for it? It's just, I think it's a rubbish rule. It destroys the game, that rule. And like I say, fair enough if there's interfering, but I've seen times where players are literally on the edge of 10 metres. They've not touched the ball. They've not touched the player. They're not even running at the ball. They're just kind of like gliding in the background and they've not given a try for it. It's stupid.
I sort of see where you're coming from. I think there's a rule that needs to be in place, but 10 metres is maybe too big. Do we reduce it down to 5? Do you know what I mean? Like, because the only time I think you sort of see is, they're in his eye line. But if he's 10 metres away, and I understand you've got to look what's in front of you. I think the rule's probably got to stay in terms of, being close, but I think maybe reduce it to 5 metres rather than 10. Initially, I thought you meant get rid of the 10 metre offside, Becca. I thought you meant like not come back 10 metres. You wanted it back to the old days of 5. But when you sort of put it like that, no, I get it, and I think it really frustrates fans, doesn't it? When he comes, or he's within 10. Yeah, but within 10 of, like you say, he could be within 10, but he's got no. The player's not challenging for the ball, or the player isn't. They've had the call that they're offside and they've stayed, but then because they're still within 10. Yeah, so I'm sort of with you on that one, Becca. I don't think you can get rid of it entirely, but I think you've definitely could reduce it down to 5.
Next point.
I win. Right, I've got notes on my phone. I told you, I've actually come prepared, right? I did my homework. Oh, right, this is one for us all social media people that use social media, right? This is going to be controversial, but it's not worth being controversial. But it's just my opinion, right? What they should do is for like fixture releases and stuff like that, the RFL should just have a template for every club. They should all use the same template and just stick their own badge on it, because it's so confusing when different clubs are putting different stuff out, and it just does my head in. Like, it just does my head in. And there's so much like different clubs putting. Oh, it's so annoying. Like, I just can't get my head around it. You go and look at other sports like American football and stuff, and they all do it. They have like the same sort of thing, but just with their badge on it. So there should be like a social media template.
Can you
Like, it's a bit controversial.
You've kind of got me stumped. What do you mean? Give me an example.
Right, so the Super League fixtures came out this week, last week, right? All clubs are announcing this is our home, this is our away, but some clubs were doing this is all our fixtures. Some were just doing the home, some were just doing the away. The RFL should give them a template and have like the fixtures on the template, and they literally just shove the badge in the corner, and then that's it.
So,
like, it should have to follow a rule. Do you know what I mean?
What you mean is you got confused reading someone's fixture list, and you think everyone should change to help you out.
Yeah.
So, as someone who's, and as we're talking, the Championship of League One fixtures are being released in less than 24 hours as we're recording, and I think by the time this goes out, they'll be announced. As someone who's had some said templates, general templates, no. Because they're the ones that we've had through, they're not exactly the best. They're quite generic. They're quite, for the want of a better phrase, they're quite drab. So I know that we've had some through for Whitehaven, and we looked at them and gone, no. So we're, in terms of, these are just like the general sort of, because they're doing it where we release your first home fixture, which essentially then is your first away fixture as well, because obviously depending on the other team. And we've looked at them, and on each one, they've just put all of them on, so they haven't give you like specific ones. They haven't said, right, poof, this is your fixture. It's got all of them on, so it's got round 1 and round 2. So we've decided to go off that, and we're making our own for round 1 and round 2. For the overall fixtures, I mean I think we'll be using the RFL one that we're given. We'll have posted it by the time this has gone out, but I'm against that. I think clubs need to be individual. There need to be such things like that. There maybe needs to be, something coming from to say, right, do it like this or do it like that, have all your fixtures on, such things like that. But clubs need to be individual. You need to stand out, whether it's KR doing it or, Leeds, Wigan, it needs to have that individuality. I don't think you can just have one general template, because I just think that then that gets lost amongst everything else.
I disagree, because clubs, they have their own stuff through everything else. Like, I'm not saying every single thing, like for every game and everything, they should have one template. I'm just saying for these like big announcements, they should have something, because I just think it's like you're saying, I understand that they're a bit drab, but if everyone's is drab, everyone's is the same. But that whole first game announcement thing does my head in as well. Like, I don't want to know that we've got Salford as the first game in February. I don't want to know that Barrow have got Toulouse away in February. Do you know what I mean? It does make. I don't actually know that. That is not inside information. But like, it just depresses you. Like, St Helens have got Catalan in March. I looked at flights and it's like $5,000. It's so depressing. But yeah, well, like I say, it's a controversial point that is not even worth being controversial. But it was something that annoyed me, so I picked up on it. Right, so then I've got another one from me, and then I've got another one from an anonymous individual. Shut up, Dan. So, from me, right, this is one that we've touched on in the podcast before, but they just need to make events bigger and better. Like, they're just doing something wrong, aren't they? Because England games, they just need to be cheaper. It's just all of these big events are just not seen as big events. And I mean, to be honest, you look at international football, and that's kind of the same as well when it's not the big competitions, but it just needs to be bigger and better, the events that they do.
How have they got to do that?
Well, they've got to increase publicity at Super League games themselves. Like, you watch NRL and stuff, and it's always on about what's going on, like big games and stuff. But in the actual stadiums, they have it advertised and stuff. I go to St Helens, and to be honest, I never ever see the Magic Weekend advertised in the ground. Like, you'll see it on telly, but you might see the odd poster or 50% off for members and stuff, but you don't actually see it in the grounds. And clubs get like allocated tickets as well that they have to sell, that they buy off the RFL. So obviously there's some clubs that don't need to advertise as much, and because of that they probably don't. But it just means the events just aren't advertised as much. But again, making the tickets cheaper, because them England games, £25 each for an adult, it's just ridiculous, especially if you want to go watch both games. You're paying £50, and then probably half the people going don't even live anywhere near, so they're having to drive there as well. It's just, there's just something so wrong with that, and they just need to totally have a total makeover on whatever they're doing with that, really.
In terms of the events, obviously you mentioned the NRL. I think it helps with the NRL. Obviously in Australia it's the leading sport, isn't it? You know, that in Aussie rules is up there. So in terms of them getting people into the grounds and such things like that, there's always going to be people there. It's a sport that's talked about. It's essentially like football over here. I think what probably hinders, I mean, maybe I don't know now, but in terms of Super League level, is that obviously the clubs are in final charge of things, aren't they? There isn't it's not a central body that's making final decisions in terms of you know, where games are going to be, you know, in terms of anything really. Obviously, you know, there's the talk this week of obviously Salford needing the extra financial boost, and it's the clubs that get to make that decision. It's something that's been talked about, obviously, you know, initially since the RFL and Super League split, which was, I think, nearly 20 years ago, and they've come back under the banner now of the RFL and RL Commercial and such things like that. But these Super League clubs are still making their own rules up as they go along. I mean, what other game? I mean, obviously, in what other game do you get where, you know, clubs make a final decision? I think there needs to be that body in place that sort of makes these decisions. And then I think this is what RL Commercial was, when, you know, sort of come back all under the same banner. But at the end of the day, the Super League clubs have still got a final decision about the majority of things that where rugby league goes in this country. And whether it's promoting Magic Weekend events, or whether it's promoting this or promoting the other, or whatever it may be, the clubs are essentially going to make a decision that's best for themselves. They're not going to, you know, whether it's later, a couple of years down the line, whether it's 14 teams going into the Super League, well, half of them clubs probably aren't going to vote for that because they know they'll get a less reduced share of the pie. And there's a lot of the clubs in Super League, i.e., you know, Salford as an example, who can't afford to have a penny less than what they're getting already. So I think something needs to be done in terms of that it needs to stop being self-interest. There needs to be a body there, whether it's the RFL, whether it's the RL Commercial. There just needs to be that body there that takes that power away from the clubs and goes, right, we're making decisions for the good of the sport, and such things like that. I think this is why sometimes you see such a haphazard approach to certain things, especially, like you say, Becca, like the likes of Magic Weekends, and, you know, all the games were on TV last year, but majority of the time, you know, on a Friday night there was 3 separate games on, so if you wanted to watch all of them, you couldn't. There needs to be someone who takes control and goes, you're playing on a Thursday night, you're playing on a Friday, you're playing at 2 o'clock on a Saturday, as an example, 5 o'clock, 8 o'clock. There just needs to be so all these games are on at the same time, and then they can not on it at the same time, and then they're getting the publicity they deserve as well. Then we can show that if you are a St Helens fan, but you're also interested in rugby league, that if you want to watch a game on a Friday night, or you want to watch, you can do that, whether that be on the TV or whatever it may be. There needs to be more opportunities for clubs to stand on their own 2 feet, whether that just be in terms of television rights or whatever, something like that, or television figures, especially now viewership is going to be massive, isn't it, in terms of IMG? We had that discussion last week and a couple of weeks before as well. There needs to be more opportunities for these clubs to take that, and I don't think they're going to. A lot of them aren't going to vote. Turkeys don't vote for Christmas, do they? So I think it's a lot of them like that. It's going to be like that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't disagree with that, to be honest. Becca, you
I'm
got
sure
any
you said you do disagree with that.
Oh, no.
The only thing I would say is, I see what you're saying about the NRL, but again, that it's not the biggest thing over there when like Super League clubs go over. World Club Challenge didn't even sell out the St Helens Penrith game, so I think it was 13,000 at that game, and they sell out most obviously NRL games over there. So just shows like it's obviously not something that's remote over here. It's not just us doing something wrong, because a World Club Challenge game should be at least nearly a sellout. I mean, Wigan was nearly a sellout. Oh, I think Wigan was a sellout actually when it was over here. But yeah, it's just like making events exciting. Like you look at all the stuff that's going. It used to go to Magic Weekend. They would have loads on. Same with the grand final. They'd have loads on outside the stadium. You go, they'd have challenges. They'd have stuff for kids, but stuff for adults. You go now, they've still got little bits, but it's way less than what it used to be. I just go to the grand final and I go to the ground about an hour before the game. Whereas like me and my dad, we used to go like 3 hours before the game so we could do everything. Just about bringing that excitement back into rugby league and the big games. But like you say, when the clubs are in charge, and as I said, if their challenge is just to sell the tickets they have and they've sold them, why are they going to advertise it? There's no point. They've sold all the tickets. So the thing is, like you say, it should be rules on advertising as well, and there needs to be a body there that decides that.
Take that.
So I win that one as well. Right, I'll go into my controversial one now on women's rugby league, and this was from an anonymous person who is an ex-women's rugby league player. I won't name her, but she sent me a personal message and said what she would like to see is the balls in women's rugby smaller for women. So yeah, a bit of a controversial one, but I actually liked her explanation. So she said she's not normally one to change the rules between women and men's games, because she's kind of like all for the, getting the expansion going and getting it very similar. But she said men like genetically have bigger hands, and she said if women had the chance and they could learn different skill sets, they could better the skill sets, you would see maybe better tries than what you do see already, and maybe tries kind of similar to the men's games. I mean, for example, Tommy Makinson, he does his dive over in the corners quite a lot. A lot of women probably struggle doing that because the ball's probably a bit too big for their hands. I mean, speaking from me, I'm pretty much built like a man, so my hands are massive and it's fine for me. And I've never really thought about it, but yeah, obviously for a lot of women, it probably is quite big for them.
They do that in the women's basketball. It's a size smaller ball. Whatever, obviously I'm not familiar with basketball sizes or anything like that, but I'm sure it's a size smaller and the ball weighs less. So they do that, but like you say, genetics. It's just genetics, isn't it? And there's obviously a lot of talk, even about other sports at the minute. About for example, should transgender women be allowed to play in certain sports and such things like that? And that's a more controversial one that we're definitely not going to dive ourselves into. But there is rules in other sports. So, like I said, we mentioned there basketball, and I'm sure there's others there as well. Other sports. But yeah, there's definitely something there. I mean, they're even obviously talking about like in the women's Super League in the football, and obviously the prime development, that how there's a lot more sort of knee injuries because of the way women, women's skeletons are different to men. Obviously, hips are different, obviously to allow childbearing and such things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of talk about how even in football how things can change. Is it boot design? Is it what can they do? So. I'd take that. I mean, I think you'd probably have to do a poll, for the want of a better thing, across the women's game, and whether they would feel that would be beneficial or not. I think would you need something in the middle? Do you not think a size 4 ball would be too small? Would you need a 4.5? Or I just feel like size 4 might be just that little bit too small, because obviously, that's sort of used by the kids, by the juniors. I think you maybe need something in the middle, like say a 4.5. But yeah, I don't see that being. I think especially in terms of kicking and things like that, if you're using a slightly lighter ball as an example, it's one of the things in the women's game which is getting better. But Becca, I think you'll see, obviously, you've done a lot of work with obviously Danny on the comms, and they're not kicking the ball far, half as far as say the men's game are, and obviously that's to be expected. But if there's a smaller ball, a lighter ball, that potentially that become more part of that, and becomes more part of the game, and potentially could be a massive game changer. So yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't, but I think it would have to, obviously, you'd have to be universally accepted across all women's rugby league. You couldn't just have the British game doing it and then the NRL still playing with a size 5 as an example. You'd have to be something that is pretty much standardised, which in something in rugby league we don't do an awful lot of, do we?
I think you could get away with it. Sorry, Andy, but I think you could get away with it if the NRL did it maybe differently. I think maybe over here even test it in a league, like test it in championship or something, and then maybe introduce it, like have a little trial with it in a league and see how it works, because NRL way ahead of Women's Super League over here, way ahead. Like they're massively ahead over there. I think the minimum salary cap for a women in there over there now is 30 grand a year. So you'd be lucky to get that plus your normal job wage over here doing rugby. So yeah, I think you could get away with it, but it would have to be trialled for sure, and then obviously see where you go. But I agree, I think a size 4 is a bit too small. I obviously have helped training the kids and that, and I've picked them up, and yeah, I think it would fall out my hands if someone threw one of them at me. But yeah, like you say with the kicking and that, I pick up on it quite a lot on the comms. It's getting better, but it's not going to be as good as men's because they haven't been playing since they were 5. They've been playing for a few years, so obviously that is going to. But yeah, you'd have to try it. There's so much to do, but again, a bit of a controversial one, to be fair.
No, I completely agree with it, to be fair. Maybe more towards the 4.5 sort of size ball. Obviously, it's not something that I've really thought about, to be honest. But yeah, if you get an all-round better product from it, like touch on the diving tries in the corner and getting further kicks and higher up and everything like that, yeah, slightly lighter ball. I think it'd be probably cracking, and it'd probably improve the women's game a bit more as well.
It's not to say that in the future they won't use a size 5, but right now in them development stages that women's rugby's are, is that the best thing for the sport? You've got to look at them sort of things and think, well, maybe, and then in a few years start introducing them different things. I mean, it's all like even like men's rules. Stuff gets introduced and changed all the time. That's just how they, develop the sport. So it's not a step backwards, which some people would probably argue, but yeah, you've just got to see, haven't you? But again, yeah, maybe a bit controversial, but you'd probably have more women arguing against it than men, to be fair.
Should move on to some Facebook comments. Have you got a couple more, Becca?
I think that's me done, to be honest.
Is that your ranting done? That's it.
Yeah.
Well done,
Thank
Becca.
you.
Big rant.
Thanks, everyone.
I would insert like an audio clip of someone doing applause, but there's too much editing. I can't be asked.
You can just go read all my Facebook comments instead, because I was the only one that went out and got Facebook comments.
Maybe.
Ooh, I'm Becca. I get comments.
I contribute to the podcast.
Just after the ones that weren't on Becca's page, shall we?
Yeah.
No, start with the ones that were.
I've not got it written down who's on what, so I'll just start with the top. So we had Darryl Rush, who's on about wanting to bring back competitive scrums. What's our thoughts on that? For me, when I used to be a pro, I love the scrum for a rest and maybe a bit of shit holding. I had no interest in pushing.
Untying shoelaces in the scrum.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I love
top lace and so on. And you have to, when they've got to unlace the boot completely and then lace it all back up as well.
Oh, brilliant. I have the worst story. I'll make this real quick. But when I went and played at Lee, I went out drinking the night before, and I was fine through the whole game. Bent over for the first scrum and spewed all over this lass's boots.
You're rotten.
Went, is that Jaeger?
Oh, that's rotten.
Yeah, it was vile.
No No wonder Barrow's rivalry with Leeds. So Becca
Yeah.
had started it, puking all over
Yeah.
Lasso's boots.
We're all fine till that day.
Jordan, thoughts on competitive scrums?
I think the art of scrummaging's gone out of rugby league. I don't see now. It's not. No one's interested in a scrum. If I'm being honest, rather than bringing back competitive scrums, I'd get rid of them. Just get rid of scrums. They're a complete and utter waste of time.
Remember
think
during
you get
COVID,
nice-
they changed the rules around, didn't they?
Yeah,
I found that better. I found it
Yeah.
better to watch, and it made the game a bit faster as well.
yeah,
I
and
disagree.
yeah. I mean, you're coming with that just from a forwards point of view, which I completely get it.
Yeah.
But, and
Not
and
even that. I think you get your set players. You get some really
Well,
like
I was
decent
just about to go.
set
Yeah.
players on that.
I was
Against
just about to
broken
go.
defences.
I was just about to go against my own argument there as well. How many times? And I think it's been more prevalent since they were reintroduced post-COVID. There seems to be a lot more tries scored from player one now on scrums. I don't know if it's just me that sort of thinks that, and I've got no stats or anything to back me up, but it's something I mention in commentary quite a lot that there seems to be a lot more players now from scrum one and from player one, and I don't know whether that's just teams are becoming more clever and they've got different things, or teams aren't just defending anymore against scrums, or whatever it may be. But yeah, considering they were only out of the game for 12 plus months, really, and only at the top level of the game. I don't know what it is, but there seems to be. So I'm going against my own argument. But if you're not going to have a competitive scrum, which obviously we don't in rugby league, they do in rugby union. I don't see the point, but I can see the point when obviously the set players and such things there. So like I say, I'm going against my own argument, but if it was me, I'd be up for getting rid. If someone come to me and said we're getting rid of scrums, I wouldn't be disappointed. Let's say that.
I even like the rule they brought in where you can go right. You can pick where it's from. Like obviously you got your channels, haven't you? You 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
So say if you put it down the middle, you're going against a split defence of 3 and 3, or you can sort of hit it from the side there and you create your overlaps. I'm a big fan of it because that's where you can see what they've done on the training pitch and everything like that. You can sort of see the set players coming into it, the fullback sort of looking around to try and catch the man out. And yeah, I'm all for keeping them in. Maybe not competitive, but just keeping them in general.
I don't think you can go back to competitive. I think it's been out of the game that long now that there's a whole generation which hasn't had competitive scrums. How many times you see a scrum won against the head these days? I mean, I can remember Whitehaven doing it once. We're talking probably 10 years ago now. I think we played Keighley on a Tuesday night at home. And I remember, I remember Whitehaven winning coming against the head, but the crowd got excited for it because it only happened once in a while. I just don't, I don't think you can go back to competitive scrums. I wouldn't be against it. If you're going to keep scrums, they might as well be competitive. But like you said, I think a whole generation's played now where you couldn't have it.
So we're going to our next point of, sorry, Dan, what's your thoughts on it? Competitive scrums.
Get rid of them.
Just get rid of them at all.
You're wrong.
Yeah.
Next Facebook comment was Danny Heslop. More televised games for League One Championship. I'm completely on board with that. That's something we touched on last week.
Yeah, something I can get on board with, but I think we forget sometimes that in this country we're still a minority sport, and that if the demand isn't there, in terms of people watching it, the broadcasters aren't going to put it on. And obviously, I know there's a lot of talk about streaming and such things like that, but we've had them conversations as well. We had that conversation last week about the costings and such things like that. And I think if you can get it on there, and for us as a Championship and League One, I don't think it can't be behind a paywall, and that's the problem. That the BBC aren't going to take it, ITV aren't going to take it, Channel 4 aren't going to take it. I think obviously if it was on Sky, I think obviously that's our biggest thing. Then yeah, I can take it. But if it's going to,
I think I can still play for my Premier Sports or whatever it's called now. I think I need to get that in a bin. No,
yeah. But if it's going on a Premier or a Viaplay or a DAZN or something like that, I just don't say. I think it's got to be Sky or bust at the minute. I'm not saying it wouldn't be happening then in the future. And if obviously Super League moves away from Sky, ever in the future, then that. But at the minute, I'd be up for it. Yeah, up for it. But not having silly daft kick-off times of a Monday night. I think it's got to be on a Sunday or a Saturday or whatever it may be. And it's got to have a settled spot.
I'm going to refer to football as an example here. So they've got the EFL deal now. Is it Sky Sports Plus? Where you can red button it and stream you can have the stream of the games there, can't you? No, it's not the same sort of quality as your Sky Sports or anything like that. It's just basically your hard cam, isn't it, following the game about. Why can that be an option? Not either on the red button, BBC, or stream online or whatever else. There's still avenues to go down. I just don't think either the RFL or these companies that want to maybe jump at it. Where I think there could be a market for it.
Yeah, but then you're looking at that from a competition point of view, like a cup point of view. So yeah, for the Challenge Cup and stuff, fair enough. But from the football side again, they don't put all the games like league, like Championship and Championship and League One and League Two on telly because. But obviously, it's in rugby, like we're saying, minority sport. Your attendance is going to go down, and then that's going to affect these little clubs that rely on money. We've all seen Whitehaven this year with the struggles, and a lot of that was from back-to-back games being away, and them not having any revenue at home. So imagine if Whitehaven had 4 games away from home, and the next home game was Featherstone against Whitehaven, and it was televised. If I'm from Featherstone, I'm not coming down. I'm just going to watch it on telly, and then that's gate loss for Whitehaven. Do you know what I mean? It's all these there's got to be a really fine balance, hasn't there, between it? I think Challenge Cup games from a certain level, they should be on. Even from League One side, that's good because it's a good competition that people all over the country want to watch. But when you are putting these games on telly, you've just got to think about the clubs as well.
Yeah, but then I completely get what you're saying. But then I'll go back to Barra football. I think they're still getting over 2,000 in through the gates. Dan, you might know more than I do about this. With your lads there winding up the away fans.
Closer to 3, I think, these days, isn't it? The football attendances.
And that's growing with the Sky Sports Plus thing as well, where they're getting a lot of the games televised.
The key word is exposure, and they're getting more and more exposure. That's the thing. So people will see these players on TV and think, oh, they've become more of a celebrity type, the same way that they push them more on social media. So the fans, especially the younger generation of fans, will then be willing to pay more to see these stars that they've seen on TV. So there's a lot of sides to it, isn't there? I mean, as a club, I don't think the club will want to do it, but I think the fans, they do want to see it. So it's one of them ones. You'll never find a happy medium. I think for me, if it came into the Championship, I'd rather see, if we're going to talk about IMG points, I would rather see a club that's higher end on IMG, especially with the finances. Like, if it was, like Becca just said, if it was a Whitehaven and Featherstone fixture and Whitehaven had that game on telly, would the club like it? Would it benefit them? I'd guess not. They get more exposure from it, but finances was what they need. It wouldn't be very good if it was, say, a Doncaster or a Witness. Somebody with a bigger setup and better finances. Would they grumble as much as having their game on TV? I don't think so. I think if they were playing a Whitehaven in their ground, I think it will benefit the Whitehaven fans because they wouldn't have to travel as far. So they'd save a few quid, and I don't think the home team, it would be that effective to them. So if you were going to bring it in, I think it would have to be like that. Then you start another argument, aren't you? Oh, why are all their games on telly and why is not our games? So it's one of them. It's one of them.
From a purely selfish point of view, we don't want more games streamed on TV because we want more people listening to me, Dan, and Becca.
Yeah, I was going to say they'll just get rid of us then.
Yeah,
which is why I'm motivated for the TV, to be honest.
Hold on, says you that's joined him. Won't bloody most games this season. Behave yourself.
Yeah, I know, and I stand by it. I've heard it back. We move on to our next one.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
John Knox wants to bring back the spirit of competition again. Bring back promotion and relegation. There's something I'm obviously a fan of. We touched on last week. Where are we standing on that?
It ain't gonna happen. It ain't happening in the next 11 years anyway. So
we're trying to fix rugby league. It isn't what isn't going to happen. It's what we want to happen.
Well,
it doesn't really bother me, to be honest.
No, I'm not fussed.
Yeah,
I'd love to see Barrow. I'd love to see Barrow, right, win the championship and go up. I know exactly what will happen the next year. They'll be absolutely embarrassed, be lucky to get a couple of points. The crowds will go down. The team will be deflated. It'll be a waste of money. Back in the championship, start again. So I like to keep it like it in the lower divisions, but the IMG, weirdly, it's kind of right what they're doing to help the club progress at the top of the championship and earn that spot. I know you don't like it, but I don't like a lot of things that they are doing. But I think to help for the benefit of the top clubs in the championship to grow, then yeah, I think it is the way forward because they are just going to go up and down. We've watched Lee do it for years. Watched them yo-yo up and down and up and down, and they needed a little bit of stability to sort that out, and it's working for him now, isn't it?
I'm looking for that kick button to get rid of you.
Well, I mean, come on, Andy. Yeah, we win the league, right? Barrow go up to Super League. You're excited, but are you going to be excited for the year later?
Right, you
Really?
might get the occasional dick in, but you're going to get people through the gates. You're going to get a taste of that competition money where you're going to be competitive, maybe like yo-yo win between the top two divisions. As in, I'm going to go back to football again, Championship and Premier League teams. You see them yo-yo in. Yeah, you have the sort of the lower that, but then you're still getting people through the gates, bigger, more money coming in for the club. Like at the moment, that's not happening. And your crowd's going to dwindle. If you're going to see some of the best players this country's got to offer, you're going to get people in through the gates.
Moving on to Phil Thompson's point with that one, because that slots in perfectly. Sorry, if anyone wants to talk about the last point, then you can do still. But just while we're on that, he had a suggestion that, you know, at the end of like the Super League season, when you've got your top six, that's done. To be honest, you could pretty much have your top six. This year is obviously a little bit different, but I've seen years where you could have your top six with 3-4 games to go. And he was saying to keep it competitive, have your bottom side of the table playing your top side of the championship that aren't going into playoffs, but make it that the Super League team have to go to the championship team and have like a mini league. Then the championship team get the gate money, makes it still exciting a bit. It's a bit like a Challenge Cup sort of thing, but obviously it doesn't mean knockout or anything. It's not going to affect any playoffs in any way, and it's just like keeps it a bit fun because like if you don't want to go to the games, you're either going to be playing Barrow away or you're going to be playing Toulouse away. Or, do you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And if you come like bottom to last, you might already have figured that out, and you'll go to your last few games at your Super League club and your Championship club thinking, wow, we could get someone good if we win this game, or if we lose this game, we're going to get these teams. So, but again, brings in some revenue for Championship clubs and kind of keeps the season alive for a little bit longer for teams that are kind of out of it as well.
So why can't you use that to replace the playoffs? So winner of the league automatically goes up, so that way, you know, there's actual reward for winning the league rather than this grand final stuff. And then your bottom of the Super League automatically comes down, and the next three up, and the next three up for in the relegation zone, and the three in the top three after, well, second to fourth, have a little mini league there where the top three stay up, so they all play each other.
Yeah, a bit like what they did in Women's Super League this year. Obviously, it wasn't to that extent, but they had the lowest team playing the highest team of the championship to see if it would go up and it would go down. So yeah, a bit like that. Obviously, not as with all them different teams in, but yeah, just it keeps it interesting, doesn't it? Because like at the end of the season, if you're not in the top six in Super League, you don't go to the games because there's what's there to play for. But if you're trying to play for higher position so you can get out of this mini league or something, then it's something to still go for.
Go, Jordan.
So you saw it's back to the middle eight, isn't it? I don't know. I think the promotion and relegation, I think, should always be a mainstay. I understand why they've gone this route at the moment, but if they keep an IMG, and we know they're gonna for at least the next 10 years, if we keep this is the way that obviously IMG recommends to go. And I asked this question when I was at RFL HQ. I asked Tony Sutton. I said, when IMG recommended the way it is, was it that the grading system was used as promotion and relegation, essentially? And they went, yes. So it was IMG's recommendation that grading was used for promotion and relegation. So I think promotion and relegation should be decided on a field. I think that's all sporting matters should be decided on a field. I think, in terms of, you don't have the Champions League and then go, actually, Real Madrid got 25,000 average more, 75,000 average, and Man United only got 72,000 average, so there you go, they've now won the Champions League. But I just feel like if you're gonna, I feel like the competitive element has to be there. there has to be some sort of jeopardy. And yeah, there's going to be some sort of jeopardy with the IMG gradings. You know, you do have a bad season, you know, bad couple of seasons, and you know you're going to lose potentially some performance points and such things like that. But if clubs get the house in order, which this IMG is obviously going to give them an opportunity to do, I just see how it struggles. How the Championship clubs struggle to break it. That's what's going to be a Super League stranglehold potentially once it comes a 14-team competition. I think no Championship club's going to get anywhere near any Super League clubs, unfortunately. So, but giving them that, if you keep it as on the field promotion, relegation, competitive action, I feel like they've got more of an opportunity to break into that. But yeah, for me, promotion and relegation should always be there. But as Dan said, for the next 10 years, it just isn't going to be.
Done.
I've said my say. I don't want to get myself in trouble anymore.
That makes a change.
So going on the last couple of comments, Jamie Heighton wants a home and away sort of fixture's been on rotation again, so it'll be home away, home away, home away sort of thing, rather than having, you might have a month where all your games are away and it's not helping your club financially, is it? So it's probably another point I agree with, to be honest.
Yeah, Whitehaven proper struggled. Obviously, 4 home games on the belt end. It's never been known, has it, to especially to start a season. You're always going to struggle when clubs don't own the grounds, especially playing at football grounds. You know, football season finishes in May. Wigan's got to play all their games, so many games away, you know, sort of June, early July, because of the pitch work that's getting done. Huddersfield kind of they've got to find a new ground for one of their games because the Stereophonics are playing there at one of the fixtures. So it just shows you that yes, it should be home and away, in an ideal world, but we're not in an ideal world. There's only so many clubs that own their ground, and then they're relying to, obviously, like I say, Wigan, who are the big, at the moment they are the biggest club in this country, but for 6 weeks of the year they can't play at home because their pitch is getting done because of the football. So in an ideal world, should be home and away, and I think probably easier at a Championship and League One level, I would think. To do that at Super League, I don't think it's as much as a priority. Championship League One definitely should be home and away, or you shouldn't have more than 2 consecutive away games on the bounce. I know to do that, but I think at Super League, especially with some of the clubs in there, it's never going to be done. But yeah, definitely as much as it can be done at a Championship and League One level, definitely.
I agree. I'm going to jump in with that because we've seen last year, more so you, Jordan. There was a few times where Whitehaven had constant. If it was 3-4 weeks, something like that, at one point for away games. And I know that there was 2 months because obviously we go through the calendar for the radio. There was 2 months where Raiders only had 1 home game in the said 2 months, and they used these home games to pay the staff, to pay the players, and for 1 week for 3 weeks out of that month, there's no income, none. So they have to almost put themselves in debt, borrow money from somewhere to pay these wages, waiting for the next influx of home games. And at this level, it's tough. And it's not just Barrow Whitehaven. There's majority of the clubs in this level, they need at least 2 home games per month. They really do. So
I completely agree. Like, I don't want to seem like a point about him, but we've seen it with yourselves, Jordan, and we've seen it at Halifax as well. You know, like these sort of fixture congestion, you touched on there, was it 4 games at the start of the season?
4 consecutive home games at the start of the season. Like I said, it's never been known to have 4 home. I don't know if Whitehaven did challenge you. I'm sure we did. I'm sure we looked at it and gone, something's going to go wrong somewhere. And then we did. We had a run of away games, which then, and then your only home game is on a Saturday afternoon against Toulouse at home. Do you know what I mean? It was that run of games that sort of seen Whitehaven struggle. I think that obviously they struggled anyways, but yeah, it was that sort of run that obviously sort of run that really started to bite at Whitehaven. And some might say, well, they should have budgeted better, when you've got 4 home games, but also then when you've got 4 home games, you're not going to get the same crowd if they're home and away. Life's tough at the moment, finance wise, and so people can't afford to choose 4 consecutive home games. And especially with the games that there were, it was the opening game of the season, and then it was the derby, obviously the Good Friday derby. So people's going to pick, well, I want to be there for the first game, I want to be there for the Good Friday derby, I'm probably not. If I'm having to choose, I'm going to choose them games, and then I'm not going to choose the next two because it was Batley and Sheffield or Sheffield Batley, whichever way it was, and I go, I'd rather watch us play Barrow. I'd rather watch the opening game of the season, which I've missed for. I haven't seen my team for 4 to 5 months. Yeah, there's something's got to be done. I think Championship and League One definitely should be a rule in place where you don't play more than 2 home games in a row. You can't have so many weeks without a home game. Paul Crady always goes on about, and no doubt we'll find out tomorrow. No doubt, Creston always mentions about how the Raiders always seem to start the season away from home, or there's so many games away from home, opening doors. So we'll wait and see what Cresta gets tomorrow with that. But there's always something in place where there needs to be a rule there that sort of stops so many teams being, so many games being away or so many games being at home in a row. That it really needs to be worked out better.
That's why we do all our pre-season games at home, even in Workington. Hope you well.
All
so
right.
Huh?
No.
What do you know?
Nothing.
Don't be a coward.
My prediction is Barrow's first game of the season to lose away.
You're going to try and push for us to get a holiday paid by the Beeb to go there, Dan?
No chance.
Good luck with that, mate. Good luck
with that.
Oh, dear. If we'll go and get a job at BBC Yorkshire, or BBC York, we'll be all right.
And that's the voice of BBC employee Dan Payne. So we're going to our last Facebook comment was Neil Walmsley. Sort of touched on the promotion relegation sort of side of it again, which we won't go over, but he also said take the power away from these sort of the top Super League clubs having a say on decisions. You touched on it before, Jordan. It should be the governing body. It should be the RFL who's making these decisions, not like what Neil's point was when Widnes sort of went into administration. Did he get the parachute payment for going down? And the Super League clubs voted against it because the money then got split between them. So it's self-interest and greed sort of comes into that for the CEOs. It's not what's benefiting Cup Rugby. And let's be honest, a Widnes going out of business isn't good for Rugby League. They're one of the biggest sort of teams in and out of Super League, you know what I mean? So, that can't be happening anymore. It's got to be down to the governing body, not these Super League clubs.
When Toronto went out of business and Lee come in, Lee didn't get the full central distribution because obviously they would expect it to be Toronto for the following few seasons. So when Lee replaced them, the clubs had to vote whether Lee would get a full distribution.
I'm guessing he didn't.
Well, from what I'm sure, they didn't. They got a partial amount because they were only
they didn't get the full amount.
Yeah, because obviously Toronto had said from day one we're not going to take any central distribution, whatever you think of that or not. It was a case of we're not going to do this, So it was a case of So yet again, turkeys aren't going to vote for Christmas. I said it earlier.
Yeah, it's just got to get taken away from them. They can't be doing that. They'll kill the game in the basis of interest. Go on, Penny.
Just had a message from Paul Crary. Wait, I'm doing this like he's listening live.
Is he giving you his favourite colour because you're pushing too hard in interviews? You got him prepped up for the next one.
I'll just see quickly what it is. Paul Crary. Oh, he's just sent me a magazine cutting. He's just had a 2-page spread in what looks to be one of the Rugby League?
Rugby League World.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Oh well, I thought it was going to be something about changing rules and that. Never mind.
So that had no point to it then.
Yeah.
Cheers, Dan.
I just seen it pop down on my phone. I couldn't see the full text till I opened it.
Tell us the first fixture or something.
Listen up to stories told, legends new and